We've talked now how all of this really applies across B2C and B2B industries, but you've played on both sides of the fence. What are the biggest differences between being in customer experience on the B2C side versus the B2B side?
That's a huge difference, I would say. That's a really, really big difference. On the B2B side, some of the rules of the game, I would say, are very clear. You have a contract, you have SLAs, you have a very simple and easy way to understand what are the requirements, what are the expectations, what is the timeline for the delivery, phases of delivery, and all this stuff. They are very clear. On the other side, the customer side, usually it will be people who actually understand the technology or understand the industry. The dialogue is very professional. And there are very clear rules again to this part. When it comes to the B2C, it's a completely different thing. I mean, there is actually no contract. There is no rules to the interaction with the customers. Specifically in my case, when I was with the gaming company, you deal with a very, very different kind of audience. Some of the challenges is you understand, for example, the technology behind the product, and you understand where the challenges are and what leads to those challenges. When the end user, in most of the cases in the B2C, doesn't necessarily in the details of what is the technology behind it and why he's experiencing, a specific situation in the product and things like that. It's different, again, different experience, different way of handling things. Other than that, volumes are very different. Again, when you are in the B2B industry, you are dealing with companies. So the number of companies you deal with is definitely smaller than when you are in the B2C side. In the gaming industry, for example, you deal with hundreds of thousands of users on a daily basis. When I moved from a gaming company, which is B2C, to the B2B, I kept saying, I mean, it's a different game. It's
a different game.
One of the things that I was happy about is to get the taste of both of them, because right now where I am, for example, in Bridgewise, the solution is in most of the cases is B2B2C, because at the end of the day, it's a solution that we are selling it to businesses, but they're offering it to their end customers. The understanding of the whole chain of B2B and then from the B2C is very helpful to get the wider view of how things are working and what the C at the end of the chain is expecting and the experience of the end customer. It gives a much broader and a much clearer picture of how you need to drive your customer experience actions in order to make not only the B2B part, but also to make it all the way to the last mile of the end customer.
Well, I know that you have to have been playing on both sides. You have to learn things that you're like, oh, in the B2C world, I could see how that applies to B2B. And in the B2B world, I could see how that better applies over to B2C. What's an example of a couple of ideas that because you played on both sides of the fence that you think you could share with the other side or cross-pollinate?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell it's an interesting question. I remember in the first week in the current company, one of the things that we talked about is how do we measure adoption of a product by the end customer? For example, in the gaming industry, measuring adoption or measuring actually the active users of the game on a daily basis is critical, because that's the main measurement. How many people are logging into the game on a daily basis?
Yeah.
To take the mechanism of how do you measure adoption, or how do you measure actually usability of a product in the B2B side when it is a product that actually goes all the way to the end customer? It was a very nice experience to see how to take the mechanism that I learned in the B2C and apply it into the B2B, because there are users that their regular habit, for example, is to log into the game every day. And there are users that the regular habit is to log into the game once a week. A user who actually used to log into the game once a week, and if he didn't log in for 2 days, it doesn't mean that he just, stopped playing or he left the game, because that's his usual frequency of logging in. So you need to develop a mechanism that measure adoption based on the regular habits of the user. One of the things that we wanted to see is to check how do you measure the adoption of this application, the investment application by the end users. And the idea is to check, first of all, what's the regular habit, and based on that, to make the measurement and see whether you have some challenges of usability or not. There are definitely some metrics and some ways of doing things in the B2C which are applicable, and you can take them and use them in the B2B2C areas.